There's something inside every human being that hasn't been fully expressed yet. Something raw, real, and powerful. You were born with it. Before you ever spoke a word, before anyone told you who you were supposed to be, you already had this silent force living inside you. And it's still there, waiting. You see, the world has done a really good job of convincing people that greatness is a rare gift, that it belongs to the chosen few, the ones born into privilege, or the ones with perfect timing, perfect genes, or perfect connections. But that's a lie, a bold, persistent lie that too many people have swallowed. Greatness is not exclusive. It's not a lottery. It's not for the elite, it's for the willing. The truth is, greatness lives inside everyone. It may not look the same in each of us. Some will lead, some will create, some will serve, and some will teach. But it exists in all. That means you. You have something within you that has never been seen before. A vision, a voice, an ability that has been waiting for the right moment to break free. And for too long, it's been locked away under fear, self-doubt, bad advice, or even worse, silence. You've probably had glimpses of it. Maybe it showed up when you had an idea that made your heart race, but you didn't act on it. Maybe it surfaced when you helped someone and felt truly alive. Or maybe it came in the quiet moments when the noise died down and something inside whispered. You were meant for more. That's not just emotion. That's not wishful thinking. That's potential calling your name. But the problem is, potential doesn't scream. It doesn't bang on the door. It whispers, and you have to be still enough to hear it and brave enough to answer. Most people don't. They get caught in survival, in the routine. They play roles instead of living purposefully. Not because they aren't capable, but because they've been convinced that what they have isn't enough. They've been taught to wait for permission, instead of recognizing that they were born with everything they need to start. Think about this. Some of the world's greatest minds never had a title. Some of the most impactful leaders never had a degree. Some of the most powerful voices were ignored for years before the world caught up. What does that tell you? It tells you that potential doesn't need approval. It just needs pursuit. It needs belief. It needs consistent, courageous action. And here's the hard part. No one else can tap into your potential for you. You can't delegate it. You can't rent it. You can't borrow someone else's blueprint and expect your soul to come alive. This journey is yours, and deep down, you know it. That's why dissatisfaction creeps in even when life looks good on paper. That's why the same routine starts to feel like a prison. That's not failure. It's feedback. It's your inner greatness refusing to stay silent. But you have to understand, your potential doesn't just benefit you. It's not just about living a better life for yourself. Your gifts are tied to someone else's breakthrough. Your courage could unlock freedom for someone else. Your voice could be the echo that wakes up another sleeping soul. So when you hold back, when you play small, you don't just rob yourself. You rob the world of what only you can bring. You weren't meant to copy someone else's greatness. You were built to discover your own. And discovery isn't comfortable. It's not neat. It's not instant. But it's worth it. Every time you stretch beyond your limits, every time you try something new, every time you face fear and still move forward, you're chipping away at the surface, revealing more of what's been hiding underneath. Not because it wasn't there before, but because now you're finally ready to meet it. Greatness isn't a destination you arrive at. It's something you grow into step by step. By deciding each day that your life has meaning, your voice has value, and your dreams deserve action. Adversity is not your enemy. It's your ally in disguise. Most people spend their lives running from discomfort, avoiding hardship, dodging failure like it's a disease. But what they don't realize is that every time you run from pain, you also run from power. Because it's the fire that forges you. It's the struggle that shapes you. If you look at anyone who's ever achieved anything meaningful, you won't find a story filled with comfort. You'll find pain, setbacks, rejection, sleepless nights, and silent battles. And yet they kept going. Life doesn't hand you character. It doesn't deliver strength wrapped in a box. It gives you problems, resistance. It gives you people who doubt you, situations that break you, moments that scare you. And inside those moments, you discover who you really are. You don't find out who you are when everything is easy. You find out who you are when your back is against the wall and there's no cheering crowd, no backup plan, no applause. That's when the real you shows up. Adversity is the training ground for greatness. And it's not pretty. It's messy. It will test you. It will stretch you beyond what you thought was possible. It will knock you down, sometimes more times than you think you can stand. But in those knockdowns, in those failures, in those heartbreaks, that's where character is born. Because anyone can talk a good game when things are going their way. But when everything falls apart, when the people you counted on walk away, when your plans fall through, and you're left standing in the rubble, that's when the real work begins. That's where you learn resilience. That's where patience is carved into your bones. That's where humility is planted. That's where courage is no longer a quote. It becomes your lifeline. Adversity forces you to grow up. It forces you to confront your excuses, face your insecurities, and ask yourself whether you're willing to fight for the life you claim you want. And that fight, it's not a one-time event. It's daily, it's internal, and it's sacred. Some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are the ones who have scars that no one sees. Not because they haven't suffered, but because they've turned that suffering into strength. They've learned to carry pain without becoming bitter. They've learned to lose without calling themselves losers. They've learned to fail without giving up on themselves. That kind of person wasn't born that way. They were built brick by adversity. You see, adversity has a way of stripping away the superficial. It exposes what's real. It pulls you away from fake smiles and surface level success. It makes you question your beliefs, challenge your limits, and decide who you're going to be when things get tough. It's in the struggle that vision becomes clear. When everything around you falls apart, you stop pretending. You stop chasing approval. You stop living small, and you start choosing the path that's aligned with your purpose, not your comfort. And let's be real, no one wants adversity. No one asks for heartbreak, for loss, for failure. But when it comes, and it will come, the question isn't, why me? The question is, what will I do with this? Because adversity will either break you or build you, and you get to decide. You get to decide whether the pain will harden your heart or deepen your wisdom. You get to decide whether the failure will silence your dream or sharpen your drive. You get to decide whether your past will define you or refine you. People often pray for strength, but when adversity shows up, they try to run from it. What they don't understand is that the strength they prayed for comes disguised as pressure, as disappointment, as betrayal. It doesn't show up in the way we expect, but it shows up with purpose. Because adversity doesn't come to destroy. It comes to develop. It doesn't come to punish. It comes to prepare. You may not see it in the moment. You may be too deep in the fight to understand the lesson. But that doesn't mean the lesson isn't there. The greatest fight you'll ever face isn't out there in the world. It's in your own mind. It's not the economy. It's not your background. It's not your competition. It's the thoughts you entertain, the doubts you feed, the fears you allow to live rent free in your head. Before anything ever stops you on the outside, you've already been stopped on the inside. That's where the real war is. And until you win that battle, no amount of talent, opportunity, or support will ever be enough. It starts quietly. Sometimes it sounds like, who do you think you are? Or, you're not good enough. Or maybe, it's too late for you. It's not always loud. It's not always aggressive. But it's constant. It's that low-level resistance you feel every time you try to stretch, to speak up, to rise. It disguises itself as reason, logic, caution. But underneath it all, it's fear. And fear left unchecked becomes a fortress. It builds walls around your potential. It turns your vision into a prison. The hardest thing about this internal battle is that most people don't even realize they're fighting it. They think the problem is outside of them. They think it's bad luck. They think it's what they lack: education, money, support. But the truth is, the limitation lives in the mind. That voice of self, doubt isn't a reflection of reality. It's a reflection of conditioning. Somewhere along the way, someone or something convinced you that you were less, that you weren't worthy. And without even knowing it, you took that lie and made it your truth. But just because you've believed something for a long time doesn't make it true. Your thoughts are not facts. And just because fear shows up doesn't mean it gets to drive. The mind is powerful, so powerful. It can build empires or keep you trapped in cycles. It can push you toward your dreams or paralyze you with what ifs. And what determines that direction isn't your circumstances. It's your choices. It's what you choose to focus on. It's what you decide to believe. Every time you wake up and choose faith over fear, you weaken that internal enemy. Every time you silence the voice that says you can't and do it anyway, you reclaim territory in your mind. You start to build a new pattern, one of self-trust. Because belief isn't something you just have. It's something you build. It's something you earn through action, through discipline, through repetition. You don't overcome fear by thinking positive thoughts. You overcome it by doing the thing you're afraid of over and over until fear no longer owns you. The battlefield of the mind is littered with unfinished dreams and abandoned goals. Not because people weren't capable, but because they lost the internal war. They let fear speak louder than faith. They let insecurity drown out intuition. They let the past define what they believed was possible for their future. And they settled, not because they had to, but because they didn't understand the battle they were in. When you finally grasp that the enemy isn't out there, you take your power back. You stop blaming, stop waiting, stop hoping someone else will fix it. You stop measuring your worth by someone else's opinion. You realize that victory starts with mastering your thoughts, challenging your assumptions, and confronting every lie you've ever told yourself about who you are and what you can become. You realize that your greatest weapon is your mindset. Some people spend their whole lives trying to control everything around them when the real control comes from mastering what's within. The thoughts you nurture, the beliefs you reinforce, the stories you tell yourself every day. You can have all the talent in the world, but if your mindset isn't aligned with your purpose, you'll always feel stuck. You'll always find a reason not to try. Not because you can't, but because your mind has already decided that you won't. It takes work, mental work. And that's the part most people skip. They want the rewards without the rewiring. But you can't live a powerful life with a powerless mindset. You can't build something great while still telling yourself you're not enough. The world can only meet you at the level of your belief. And when your mind is trained, when it's strong, focused, disciplined. There is nothing you can't do. There is no perfect time, no magical moment where everything lines up, all the doubts vanish, and the path is clear. That's not how progress works. That's not how dreams are built. You move forward not when you're ready, but when you decide that waiting is no longer an option. The clock is ticking, not because you're running out of time, but because life doesn't wait on hesitation. The longer you delay, the more distant your purpose becomes, buried under comfort, fear, and the illusion of someday. Most people don't fail because they're not capable. They fail because they wait. They wait for clarity. They wait for permission. They wait for someone to believe in them. They wait for more money, more education, more confidence. But the truth is, those things don't come before action. They come after it. Confidence is born in motion. Clarity comes from movement. And belief grows when you show up and do the work anyway, even while fear rides your back. The lie we've been sold is that action comes after motivation. That you need to feel inspired, fired up, in the zone to start. But that's backwards. Waiting on motivation is like waiting on lightning to strike the same place twice. You don't need motivation. You need commitment. You need discipline. Because discipline shows up even when feelings don't. Discipline moves when you're tired. It pushes forward when nothing's happening. It keeps going when the applause fades and no one's watching. The people who change their lives, the ones who turn vision into reality, don't have more time than you. They don't have fewer distractions. What they have is urgency. A fire inside that refuses to be ignored. They treat every day like it matters because it does. They understand that someday is not a day of the week. That waiting to feel ready is just fear dressed up in a suit and tie. They act, not recklessly, but consistently, deliberately, boldly. Taking action now doesn't mean you have to leap off cliffs. It doesn't mean you throw caution to the wind. It means you do the next right thing. It means you stop making excuses and start building evidence. Evidence that you're serious, that your dreams aren't just fantasies. They're goals with structure, with steps, with urgency. Because nothing changes if nothing moves. You can journal, you can plan, you can visualize. But until you execute, you're just entertaining yourself with ideas. And ideas without execution are just regrets waiting to happen. The fear of starting is often louder than the task itself. We build it up in our minds. We imagine failure before we've even made the attempt. We convince ourselves that taking action might lead to embarrassment, to judgment, to discomfort. But what we don't consider is the pain of inaction. The quiet suffering of watching time pass while your potential sits untapped. The sting of looking back and realizing that the only thing standing between you and your next level was the step you never took. You don't have to know every answer. You don't need to have every detail mapped out. What you need is a decision. One decision made with conviction has more power than 1,000 good intentions. Because when you decide, really decide, you shift something inside. You send a message to your mind, to your body, to the world, I'm done waiting. I'm moving, I'm building. And the moment you move, the moment you act, doors start opening. Opportunities you couldn't see before come into focus. People begin to show up. The energy around you shifts because action creates momentum. And momentum makes things possible. The danger in waiting is that you start to normalize it. Delay becomes your default. You get used to telling yourself, not yet, until you believe it's always not yet. You convince yourself there's more time, that your future self will somehow be braver, stronger, more focused. But your future self is built by the choices you make today. Every time you act, you cast a vote for the person you're becoming. Every day you hesitate, you train yourself to retreat. It's not just about progress, it's about identity. Are you someone who waits or someone who moves? Are you someone who wishes or someone who works? No one's going to do it for you. No one is coming with a golden opportunity wrapped in certainty. Life will give you moments, windows, and it's on you to step through them. The cost of inaction is not just missed opportunity. It's the erosion of belief. The longer you stay still, the harder it becomes to believe that movement is even possible. But when you take action, even small action, you begin to build that belief again. You begin to remember who you are. You begin to realize what you're capable of. There is no one on this earth exactly like you. No one with your precise voice, your exact perspective, your story, your pain, your passion, your wiring. You carry something that no one else carries, and that is not by accident, it's by design. Yet too often, people spend their lives trying to blend in, trying to mold themselves into someone else's image of success, trying to replicate what's already been done, thinking that's the way to matter. But what if the very thing you're trying to hide or fix is the key to what makes you powerful? We live in a world that pressures people to conform. From an early age, you're taught to quiet the parts of yourself that don't fit neatly into a box. You're told to fall in line, follow the model, stay within the lines. Originality becomes a risk. Difference becomes a weakness. But the truth is, your difference is your distinction. The things that set you apart, the way you think, the way you create, the way you show up. Those are not liabilities. They are assets. The more you embrace them, the more impact you create. There's a reason imitation always feels empty. Because even if you succeed by copying someone else's path, you'll always feel like a guest in someone else's life. Success doesn't feel like success when you have to wear a mask to achieve it. And the world doesn't need a duplicate. It needs authenticity. It needs people brave enough to show up as they are, not who they think they're supposed to be. It needs people who understand that their quirks, their scars, their voice, and their way of doing things have value beyond measure. You were never meant to compete in someone else's lane. You were meant to own yours. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Sometimes your uniqueness will be misunderstood. Sometimes it will be criticized. But that's not a sign that you should change. It's a sign that you're standing out. And standing out is the first step towards standing tall. People may not always understand your path, but that doesn't mean it's not valid. The dream you carried, the idea you have, the voice you speak with, they weren't assigned to anyone else for a reason. It's easy to get caught in comparison, to look around and think you're behind, to measure your worth against someone else's highlight reel. But what you don't see is their cost, their context, their struggle. Comparison robs you of the energy you need to build your own vision. It keeps you looking sideways when you should be looking inward. Because what you have is enough when you learn how to use it. Your story, your background, your failures. They all shape a perspective that no one else has. And that perspective can become power when you stop running from it and start building with it. Every great creator, every great thinker, every world changer you admire had to embrace what made them different before the world celebrated them for it. They didn't wait for acceptance. They didn't wait for applause. They walked into rooms they weren't invited to and created space. They showed up again and again, fully themselves, even when it wasn't popular. That's how power is built, not through imitation, but through courage. The moment you stop hiding the parts of you that are different is the moment you start owning your strength. There's a fire that comes from showing up as your full self. It gives you clarity. It gives you conviction. It gives you peace because you're not performing anymore. You're aligned. And when you're aligned, you move differently. You speak differently. You lead differently. People can feel it. Authenticity carries a frequency that can't be faked. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real. Your uniqueness is not something you have to earn. It's something you already possess. It doesn't require permission. It requires acceptance. When you stop trying to fix yourself and start trying to understand yourself, you unlock a different level of power. A power that doesn't need external validation because it's built on inner truth. You don't need to be louder, flashier, or more polished. You need to be more you. Because somewhere out there, someone is waiting for the exact message, product, service, story, or presence that only you can deliver the way you do. You will never discover your full power by copying someone else's blueprint. You will only find it by digging deep into who you really are. Not just who you've been told to be. Not who you've pretended to be to survive. But who you are at the core, before the fear, before the performance, before the expectations. When you connect with that version of you, everything changes. Your work changes. Your energy changes. And so does your impact. You weren't put here just to exist. You were placed here to create, to lead, to rise. There is greatness within you. It's not something you have to find outside yourself. It's already there, buried beneath fear, hidden under doubt, waiting for your decision to unlock it. Your potential is not a question mark. It's a fact. And every moment you choose to step forward, you get closer to who you were born to become. Life will test you. It will challenge you. But the adversity you face is not a wall, it's a mirror. It shows you what's inside. It builds your strength, shapes your mindset, and teaches you what it means to stand when everything says to sit down. The battle isn't out there, it's in here. And when you start winning the war within your own mind, the world outside has no choice but to shift. You cannot wait. You cannot hesitate. You cannot keep living in the land of almost. Now is the moment. Not next year, not next month, now. Action is the language of progress. If you want a different life, it starts with a different decision. Not someday. This breath, this choice. And through it all, never forget this truth: your power lies not in becoming like someone else, but in becoming more of yourself. Your uniqueness isn't a flaw, it's your weapon. The world doesn't need more copies. It needs more people who are bold enough to be authentic. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be real. And in that realness, you will find your purpose, your strength, your voice. You have greatness within you, and it's time the world sees it.